Good afternoon and good evening to you. Welcome to the Full 100 TFH. This is where the truth is told. As you know, today is Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 2020. And today's show is a short one. Over the course of the next 5 or 6 days, I'm going to put in out shorter videos. As I said to you yesterday, those who watched my video yesterday, my video the day before, my video on Monday, was a call to action 6. On a call to action 6, I have 6 points that I raised that I think can change the course of the life of a black person or a minority citizen in a Western country. I firmly believe these 6 points will make a difference without the huge overhaul of the system. So over the next few days, I'm going to be going through each and every one of those. Today, we're going to discuss the first one, which is the change of the burden of proof from the prosecutor, the government, and the victim over to the shoulders of the officer who has committed, who's suspected of committing an offense. But before we get to that, I want to bring you guys up to date with what's been going on with Mr. George Floyd's case. So I'm just going to show you guys a few clips, bring you up to speed with what's going on that, and then we'll get to the matter of the change of the burden of proof. So without further ado, guys, let's get to it. The first video I'm going to bring you guys is a really sad one. George Floyd's current partner and the mother of his youngest child, his daughter, spoke to the press for the first time yesterday. Please take a look at the video. It's really sad, and there's nothing more to be said about it. Take a look.
Love George Floyd are calling for justice. The mother of his 6-year-old daughter spoke Tuesday about the pain and loss the family is now feeling.
I wanted everybody to know that this is what those officers took. At the end of the day, they get to go home and be with their families. Shiana does not have a father. I'm here for my baby. And I'm here for George because I want justice for him.
Welcome back. I shall not make a comment on that. I'm sure many people are going to shed a tear after watching that. So I'm going to move on to the next topic and wish her well and hope that herself and her daughter find the strength to make it through this harrowing time. The second video I wanted to show you guys is about that monkey in the White House. You saw my video yesterday with his dictator pose outside of a church, holding a Bible upside down, has never looked in the Bible, hasn't been in church for months and months and months. Well, even though he got criticized by the whole world, and he got criticized by the bishop who covers that church, was absolutely furious, a lady, and I brought you guys a clip of what she said yesterday. The reverend father of that church that he went to was also furious. He was never told about this. As if that wasn't bad enough. Yesterday, because he did that the day before, Monday, and we spoke about it yesterday. Tuesday, the following day, he's gone to a Catholic version, a Catholic church, to do exactly the same thing. And this time he's dragged along his stripper wife to pose on sacred soil. These most evil people using the church as cover. Well, guess what? Huge fallout over it. Please take a look at these clips.
I was already stunned and shocked and deeply, deeply offended that they had taken what had become holy ground and had been holy ground for 200 years and literally desecrated it, turned it into not a metaphorical battleground, but a literal battleground with those officers and those heavily armed, and just the aggression and the hostility and the innocent protesters, driving them off of church property for whatever reason. At the time, I didn't even know why. That already desecrated that, already turned holy ground into a literal battleground.
Seemed to be an expression of faith or of solidarity with faith. It seemed to be, as we've said before, an opportunity to clothe himself in the mantle of spiritual symbols and locations to, in some way, bolster or reinforce his own authority and message.
Welcome back, guys. Now, I can't call that person anything other than a monkey, an uncivilized person that the United States made the worst mistake of that country's history, probably for eternity, in voting this guy. This guy will stand out for the next 500 years, people. Sadly, we won't be here to see what people will be saying about him 500 years from now, but I can imagine. I can imagine, put it that way. I can just imagine what history will be saying about this person 500 years from now. Guys, I'm going to move on to real people now. President Obama will be making a speech today. This show was done. It's now just gone 5 o'clock. So I'll be bringing you his speech on tomorrow's show. However, Joe Biden made a speech, which I'm going to bring you a clip of. George Bush also made a speech. Now, let me say something about George Bush. George Bush is one of the, when he was voted and when he came to power, he cheated to get in power. He robbed Al Gore to get in power. His brother Jeb Bush was the governor of Florida, and the vote was held up in Florida for counting purposes until everybody forgot about it, and then they handed the presidency to Bush. Bush was one of the worst presidents until I came across this Trump. However, I must say this. Is Bush racist? Yes. When Bush was governor of Texas, no black prisoner ever got a reprieve under that guy. Not one. He never commuted anybody's life sentence, which is a record because most governors commute at least one when they leave in office, at least. This guy never did that. However, compared to Trump, he looks like Jesus Christ to me. I'm dead serious. I wouldn't call George Bush a monkey, even though he was slightly uneducated himself. But compared to Trump, this guy's a champion. Listen to what George Bush and Joe Biden, who's running against Trump in at the end of this month, at the end of this year in November. He's the one who should be president this time next year, Joe Biden. Take a look at what Joe Biden and Bush had to say about this guy. When Bush can look better than you might as well pack it up and leave. Take a look, guys.
About the killing of George Floyd, and he's calling for the nation to examine its tragic failures. America's greatest challenge has long been to unite people of very different backgrounds into a single nation of justice and opportunity. The doctrine and habits of racial superiority, which once nearly split our country, still threaten our union. The answers to America's problems are found by living up to American ideals, to the fundamental truth that all human beings are created equal and endowed by God with certain rights. Former President
the Bible at St. John's Church yesterday. I just wish he opened it once in a while instead of brandishing it. If he opened it, he could have learned something. They're all called to love one another as we love ourselves.
Welcome back, guys. Right. I want to show you guys a last clip now. One more clip two more clips before we begin. And that's what I want to show you guys, how much momentum this has picked up, because I know a lot of the people I know do not watch regular news. They couldn't tell you what's going on in Germany about this. So it's my duty to bring you a whole rounded view of what's going on. So here is a roundup of what's going on across the world. Please take a look.
There has been immense international reaction to what's happening in the United States, and CNN's Nick Robertson joins us from London to tell us more about it. Good morning, Nick.
Yeah, good morning, Natalie. I mean, it's touching so many different countries. The Philippines yesterday, there were protests, Black Lives Matter protests there in support of anger and frustration about what happened to George Floyd. Kenya, New Zealand, Australia, Greece, Ireland, the United Kingdom, Germany, the Netherlands. The list really does go on. But I think, to the point of what Justin Trudeau was saying there, it's notable that we haven't had any leaders in Europe so far and stand up and say that yes, we have problems in our countries as well, and we need to identify and tackle those problems. There is.
Welcome back. Before I go on to my last video before we start this, I want to say something. You heard in that report they said they're waiting for the European countries to speak up. The whole of Europe has not spoken out about this. As terrible as that is, I ain't got a problem with that. I do, but I don't. Do you know what I have a problem with? Is the stupid black nations. You have a white journalist there telling us, yes, we all live in these Western countries. The French, black guys live in France. Yes, we do. However, we're black. We came originally from somewhere else. Those countries that we were stolen from, and those countries that we moved from, and our parents moved from, are still there today. They haven't disappeared. Those countries are still there. Not one single one of them have spoken up. Can you believe this, people? I am absolutely furious. When this news first came out, that was my beef. I had no beef with Britain or, of course, Boris Johnson wants things to stay the same. Of course, Macron in France, although he's a good guy, that's not his priority. The people getting killed don't look like him. Angela Merkel, good lady. Does Mr. Floyd look like her? Hell no. So if we're going to criticize the Western countries for not saying nothing up to this point, which is a crime in itself, then I put it to you guys that the black nations not saying nothing is a death penalty crime. I will say no more on that. That's how furious I am. If I carry on talking right now, I'm going to lose track of what I need to do. I am that furious. Guys, I'm going to go to someone else who's furious, but his office would not let him do that. So my last video, we're going to Justin Trudeau, who's the Prime Minister of Canada. Really good guy. I really like this guy. Between him and Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, those two are my dream leaders. I would love to live in a country run by those two. I really would. Look at what Justin Trudeau did when he was asked his thoughts on the monkey in the White House. Take a look.
Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau took 21 long seconds to find the right words when asked about President Trump's handling of the unrest across the United States. Here it is.
We saw protesters tear gas yesterday to make way for a presidential photo op. I'd like to ask you what you think about that. And if you don't want to comment, what message do you think you're sending?
In horror and consternation what's going on in the United States.
That was 20 long, quiet seconds there for him to respond.
Welcome back, guys. Do you see what I mean? The fact it took him 21 seconds to respond to that question, and the word he used when he did reply, tells you the man was thinking for that long. How do I really show, how do I hold this down and not show them how really shocked, disgusted, how despicable an act I think this is. It took him 21 seconds to answer. Guys, I've got one more video that's going to come at the end of the show. That video is on the update on, if you recall, the two students, college students or university students who were tased for no reason. And the 4 officers were sacked on the spot and 2 put on leave duty. Now, all 6 have been charged, and I have an update for you. So that will be at the end of the show. So right now, guys, I'm going to get to breaking down one of my points that I made, and that is to change the burden of proof from the prosecutor or prosecuting authorities, from the victim saying he did it to me, and we having to prove that the officer did it. If we change the burden of proof from us and put it on the officer, a lot of things change, guys. A lot of things change. For example, in the incident with the 2 college students, their body cams were not working. How many times, those of you who watch these things happen over and over again, body cams were brought in because of these type of things. Not because they was doing it to white people, because we were screaming and crying over and over. And the little token thing they did is gave us body cams. However, body cams are prone to manipulation. Officer says he didn't have it on. Oh, he didn't have it on. Okay, sorry. There's nothing there to see. Officer says battery's dead. Oh, okay. Sorry. Unfortunately, it wasn't caught on camera. So, these are some of my points to deal with. This law must be brought in, people. The second thing, there can't be any loopholes or any exceptions to this. An officer cannot be on the beat and believe that he can get away with somehow having his body cam off. So the embodiment of this rule are as follows. These are some of the points. I'm going to tell you the headlines and then I'm going to discuss. Like I said, first thing is this law must have no loopholes and no exceptions. Second thing, this law must lay down guidelines around the minimum burden of proof required of the officer to clear his name or her name from prosecution. So once the law's made, you have to have guidelines to that headline law to say, for example, if your body cam's not working, you're automatically guilty. We don't care. So it's on you to make sure your body cam's working, or don't approach that person. End of story. If you see them killing somebody, radio your pal. Because when you approach that person, you never know what could happen. Yes, he was doing something wrong. But how do we know, even though he was doing something wrong, if he ends up dead, how do we know you did the right thing? We can't have doubts when this law goes in place, is my point. So there cannot be no exceptions. So firstly, when this law is made, second, you put no loopholes around it, you put no exceptions around it. Thirdly, you make sure you put guidelines in place, okay, on what is required. The minimum level for an officer to hit before we can even consider him innocent. Before we can even consider him to say, oh, wait a minute, no need to charge yet. Let's take a better look at this. Because if they report the death of a citizen, a black citizen, a minority citizen, and they're saying, oh, well, oh, gosh, my body cam was, that's it. Arrest the guy. Just straightforward arrest. These laws cannot be jokes, people. They cannot be jokes. The next thing is, if an officer is involved in a serious incident, and if the officer declares his or her body cam was turned off or did not record the crucial incident, then an automatic presumption of guilt must be the consequence. We must remember we are trying to change centuries-old behavior, right? So to do this, we need a shock treatment. shock laws and shock guidelines. We need to shock these rogue officers into reality. Okay? So no law can be can be too harsh if you're trying to protect anything. Burglary laws, you can say they're harsh, because guess what? If someone walks onto my property at the front of my house, he hasn't even got into my house, I'm allowed to call the police. And there's a law for that even before you break into the house. Trespass. So when you look at the laws we're going to discuss and the laws that need to go in place, I don't want to hear anything about being harsh, because all laws are harsh. The Civil Rights Bill in the US is what they did and what Martin Luther King achieved. Its part worked. It has. Okay? It has. But because you can't be overly racist no more. You can't. What that changed really was they couldn't stop you from going to a school that your child wanted to go to. They couldn't segregate you from a bar that you wanted to go to. So, and if they blatantly are racist, you have a civil rights case against them. It might not be a criminal one, but it's a civil rights one. That's where they tweaked it, and that's where they got away, and that's where they got one better on our hero Martin Luther King. However, it did nothing to address covert racism. It only addressed overt racism, obvious racism. It didn't address the undercover racism. We must make getting a race offense, okay, or race conviction carry the same consequences as having a criminal offense. We must make having a racism conviction affect and impede the criminal in the same way black children have been affected by criminalization for decades. So what that means is, if your conviction is, let's say you injured the person, okay, you didn't kill. Let's say it's not a situation like Mr. Floyd's situation. The person was injured, okay, and they survive. However, wrapped in the injury case, in the grievous bodily harm case, there is also a charge for being a racist officer. Then the charge for being a racist officer must carry the same weight in law, okay, on that officer's name. Just like you can't travel to America if you've got a drug conviction back in 1980, and now you can't go into America. The same way the racist conviction, a conviction for racism, has to carry the same weight. Otherwise, it's useless. This is not about revenge, but about parity. About making a racist offense a serious offense. As serious as a knife crime, a robbery, or any other jailable offense. For too long now, we've seen people behave in a racist manner at a football match, and they get barred for 6 matches, and they get fined in a court. Football clubs that condone it get a fine less than what they take in half a match, half of one match out of 38 matches all season. Not even half. They probably get fined what they make in the first hour of one match. That needs to stop. That really, really needs to stop. Because if I have a conviction for, if I have a conviction for a knife crime, for example, okay, and I get pulled over by the police, the way I am treated, because that's come over the radio that I have a knife conviction, I'll be lucky to come out of it without injuries. So a racist conviction has to be elevated above shoplifting, above these petty, stupid crimes that no one goes jail for, unless you've been doing it for too long. It has to have the same level of seriousness as the most serious middle-level crimes you can have. That's the minimum we need. A middle-level crime, I would say, like a burglary, like a street robbery rather than an armed robbery, a knife crime rather than a wounding somebody with that knife. So knife crime here carries 5 years minimum. We want it to be higher than that, because a burglar can receive 7, 8, 10 years. So we want it to be above the knife crime level, but giving that range where if you're remorseful, you atone to the family, and you do all these things that most criminals who get caught have to do just to say, I'm sorry. Not stay stone-faced in the court. Don't apologize to the black people because they're black. I don't apologize to blacks. And then get a little slap on the wrist anyway. That's not going to cut it anymore. It is not going to cut it any longer. The one stipulation is that an all-white panel must not be the decider of what is deemed racist. Now we are taking a fresh look at this whole area. We've been taken the mick out of, we've been laughed at by the white men who sit down and decide what racism is and what racism isn't. If Mars had people on it, and Mars was a planet where you didn't have to spend money, there was no money to be spent, every shop was just open, every facility was just there for you. So if you're doing your shopping, you just walk to the shop you want your pineapples from, you walk to the shop you want your meat from, and you go home. So if you're from Mars, you don't know anything about money. Let's say somebody from Mars then visited this planet. How do you explain to that person what theft is? It's impossible. Because he doesn't understand theft. He doesn't know what it means to take something that doesn't belong to you. Because where he's from, everything is given to you. You don't need to steal. How do you then get that person to sit in judgment of someone who's stolen? Do you get my point? I'll say no more on that. That we're not having any more, my people. It's time we be the ones who tell you what racism looks like and feels like. Police arrest update now, guys. Okay. Basically, I'm going to show you now the video and then I'll round up. Okay. The video basically brings you up to speed with a lot of things that are changing. Like I said to you, I've seen more police officers sacked. If I add all the white countries together, from Australia and New Zealand to America to Canada to the whole of Europe, all white countries put together, if I put them all together as one, I have seen more officers sacked in one of those countries, in the USA, in 1 week, than all those countries put together ever sack in 5 years. I'm serious. So something is changing, people. And this is why it's so important for us to harness this change. We are coming to a time that things are going to change. Handshakes will not be handshakes anymore. Hugs can't be had anymore. We're not sitting close to each other anymore. Many companies are now diverting completely to working from home, which before coronavirus, if you'd said to a boss of a company who wants to see his employees and make sure his employees are working, if you said to him, oh, let your employees, he would tell you to get the hell out of his office. But we are now going to go into that phase. What I want you to do is, all of you, black, white, pink, if you're a fair-minded person, join us. Let's make change, because right now we are going to go through a period of change. And at the end of that period of change, we're all going to be living a different way. Let these things be that different way that we're living. Just like shaking hands is a different way we're living. Just like some of us mostly now working from home is a different way we're living. This is why the fight now is so crucial. So guys, look at what's happening now in America, in specifically with how quickly these guys have been charged. They need to hand themselves in. And the only reason they're not going to jail is because of Corona. Because America let a lot of people out. Okay? So they're not trying to put people in where they can be out. Okay? And I get that fully. However, they're picking up charges this Friday. Take a look.
Out for the 6 officers involved. The district attorney said that he worked through the case and that went through even their initial excuses, those officers saying that they thought perhaps the students had a gun on them. They went through the video, determined that a gun was never mentioned at any point during the event, and it was only mentioned afterward in that police report. Now, those 6 officers who arrest warrants are out for, I do want to read you their names right now. There are warrants for arrest of aggravated assault, simple battery, property damage for Lonnie Hood, Willie Sauls, Ivory Streeter, Mark Gardner, Armin Jones, and Roland Claude. Now, Streeter and Gardner were fired on Sunday. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms announcing that just the next day after that incident. There was a lot of video of this incident where Tanaya Pilgrim and Messiah Young are yanked out of that car and tased. Messiah Young had his arm and wrist fractured. He had 24 stitches. According to the district attorney, he was not taken to the hospital for 2.5 hours after that. Now, the charges against Messiah Young were dropped. Those particular officers have until the end of the day, June 5th, John and Allison, to turn themselves in. They will be held. They have a $10,000 signature bond.
Dan, thank you very much for that important update.
Welcome back, guys. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the show now. I'm gonna show you guys a permit at the end of the video. I don't even want to discuss it. I'm going to pull it up on the screen for you to take a look at. It's a permit. I'm not going to tell you what the permit was about. We're going to discuss it tomorrow, because on tomorrow's show, I'm going to put it up on the screen properly during the show so we discuss it. Today, I'm just going to put it at the end so you can see what we're dealing with, how deep this cut has to be, okay? This permit used to be issued to white men back in the day. From day dot all the way to probably the 1940s, 50s, as recent as that, if not the 60s. I don't have proof of when it actually was stopped, but I believe this is one from 1920. This permit you're going to see should make your heart bleed. Okay, guys? I just want to round up and say this before I leave you that shot. Okay? The changes we have to make have to go deep, okay? If we're serious about making these changes for real, don't let them give us argument. Don't let them give us token gestures and tell us, oh, give us 5 years, it will be done in 5 years. No. Simple laws can be passed within a week. And then you can give 30, 60 days maybe for those entities to get themselves in shape, and the law kicks in. So guys, like I said, I'll see you guys back tomorrow with the new topic. Tomorrow's topic will be the race offenders register. So just like I broke down putting the onus on the police officer as one of the laws that can change stuff, one of the second laws, this changes officers, but more importantly, this is the one that changes your Joe Public out there. This is the one that changes the guy that says, go back to where you come from. And you can just take out your phone, discreetly film him and say, what did you just say, mate? And he repeats himself. You got that on tape, you call the police. And then you detain him because he's due for arrest. This is a law. So you're physically allowed to detain him as a member of the public until the police get there. So tomorrow I'm going to discuss the race offenders register. Look out for my video tomorrow. Please subscribe and let's stay focused on the fight at hand. Until tomorrow, take care and have a fantastic afternoon. See you soon. Bye-bye.